teacher at Hartford Magnet Trinity College Academy. She was not feeling well tonight, so she couldn't make it. But she wants to be involved, and if folks are interested in what it's like to get into science teaching, being a teacher in science, and we can definitely connect you guys. So she sends her apologies for not being able to make it. So our panelists tonight are going to talk. We're going to have a little bit of a structured evening. Each panelist is going to answer 2 questions, and I'll explain those in a minute. And we'll go down the row. We'll start with Jesse, and we'll kind of work our way over here. And I'll say a little bit about each panelist. And then we're going to have a chance to break out. And each panelist is going to go to a table with their name on it. And I have a list of questions here. Not a list, but it's actually kind of like question roulette. You pick out a question if you need it to kind of get the conversation going. If you have a good conversation going already and you're just dying and burning to talk to that person at the table, then you guys go. It's kind of like just to get things going if you need a little bit of help. And I wanted to do that to kind of mix it up, in addition to having the panel, to kind of have you guys have an opportunity to talk to our panelists a little bit more, kind of in depth, and have a chance to kind of connect a little bit, hopefully. So yeah, just another point, Andrea Dernes, professor, never remember if she's an assistant or associate professor. I never get the distinction correct. But Professor Dernes couldn't make it. She's double booked tonight. She's going to another event. So she would love to have been here to see many of you guys, particularly alums and current students, but she wasn't able to make it. We're kind of all split up tonight. So let me just tell you quickly a little bit about each of the panelists, and then I'll turn it over to them. I don't want to say too much because one of the questions is, what are you doing now? What are you up to? So they'll answer that for themselves. And then I'm going to ask them, if you were to go back to your Trinity days, what advice would you give yourself about the current work that you're kind of involved in, the kind of things that you're working in right now? What would you tell yourself about the 1, 2, 5, 10 years that you've been gone from Trinity? Okay. So first up, we'll go with Jesse Wanzer. Jesse Wanzer, just to kind of keep it real short, is a teacher. Chantel is also teaching, but in a particular kind of program, so she'll tell you about that. Kate is teaching in a local school. Self-Suffice is doing different educational programs, performance programs, hip-hop education. And Stacy is doing a variety of things as well. So that's just kind of a little bit. I don't want to say too much, but I want them to say it themselves. So if we could just give our panelists a round of applause just for being here, because they're here right now. And we're all Trinity alums. So let's start out with Jesse. I'm going to turn over. So what are you doing today?
So I teach 5th grade at the Expeditionary Learning Academy at Moreland School. I started out in 4th grade, and a couple years ago I moved up to 5th, and our school is a pre-K 5 school, so we have students at the high end. And I guess what I'd say that I do on a daily basis is, with Kate, on a daily basis is trying to meet the needs of all of our students, both, I guess I should say, socially, emotionally, educationally. Our students come to us with a lot of needs and deficits that have to be remedied on a regular basis. But I think the way we look at it is all of our decisions that we make is really what's best for students, and I think that's kind of what we live by at our school. And it makes it tough sometimes because it's tough on us, but I really enjoy what I do. I teach all the subject areas. I'm most particularly interested in math, so I'm hoping someday we can departmentalize and do like a middle school and high school model. But I'd say that's what I'm doing now. So.
Okay. And we want to, maybe we could stick with you and second one. So if you were to kind of give yourself some advice back in your Trinity days, what sort of advice would you give them, particularly related to the type of work that you do with you?
So I was trying to think of an answer to this question. It would be meaningful. First thing is, if you are involved in any class that has a component or a community learning component, definitely make sure that you are involved in that and make the most of it. I tried to do that as best I could. My very first experience was at MD Fox Elementary, and I had a very good teacher that I was with, and I just jumped right in, and it made it a very good experience. If you do that, or if you have yet to do that, I would recommend that, because the kids really love having anybody come in and sit with them, talk with them, ask them what they're doing, ask them just about their day. They love it. And I think you get a lot out of it, because I still remember those experiences. I still remember the names of a couple of kids that I really was close to. And I try to check in with teachers to see how they're doing. One's no longer the district, but those are things that they will stick with you. Don't forget those things. I guess the second part would be to enjoy the experience now. It gets challenging on a day-to-day basis. So, especially now, kind of being an adult, I guess I am. That's what they tell me. But just enjoy being here now and beautiful campus. So just enjoy it. But yeah, just if you haven't gotten involved yet in any of those community learning components, I would definitely do that first and foremost.
All right, Chantel.
Right. I don't like talking on mics because I'm already pretty loud. Is the mic on? Probably not.
I'm gonna turn it on. You have to push the button. There you go.
Hello? Yeah. Is it? Oh. Hi. Okay. There it is. Hi everyone. I'm Chantel Hannaford. I am a teacher at Grace Academy, and this is now my second year. Grace Academy is an all-girls middle school in downtown Hartford. I serve a few different roles at Grace. It was funny because Jack was like, so how are we going to fit all your roles on that one piece of sheet? I was like, I know. So Grace is it's an all-girls school, and it's an independent school, so they have the teachers. We do a lot of stuff. So I'm a 5th grade social studies teacher. I'm also the athletic director. I'm also a 5th and 6th grade girls space teacher, which is like our health class. I also do a lot of administrative stuff in the main office, and I help out with the graduate support program, because we really try to get our girls into the private schools in Connecticut. So like the East Northwest Catholic, we have East Catholic, some of those schools that really have a small teacher to student ratio. So yeah, that's basically my roles at Grace Academy.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you got to Grace Academy? Because it's a little bit different than like a traditional route.
Yeah. So in my senior year at Trinity, which was like 2 years ago, pretty recent grad, I graduated in 2014. So when I was in my senior year, I was crunching, playing basketball, I was doing a lot of stuff, and I was really trying to figure out where is the best fit for me. And I applied to a lot of different places, and my first place that I applied to was, first program was Teach for America, because that was basically, what I knew. And it wasn't because of the education department or anything. It was just that's the name that almost everybody knows. It's like Teach for America. That's what you do when you get out of school to figure out what you want to do. So I decided to apply. It was a long process. I made it all the way to the end, and it was the final stage, and I got the email, and they're like, you didn't get accepted. But why? I really felt like I had all the qualities that they were looking for, but really and truly, you don't really know, because there's just so many different people who apply for Teach for America that I don't really know if they know what they're looking for, to be honest. But I won't turn this into anything about Teach for America. Anyways, so I applied for that. I didn't get accepted, and they, gave me a lot of like different opportunities that were similar to their program. And long story short, I applied for like a bunch of different teaching opportunities that were similar to Teach for America, but not like the exact same model. And one of my friends who graduated from Trinity in 2011, she was teaching at Grace Academy, and she would tell me stories all the time about like how awesome Grace Academy was and how she loved the girls, and she also told me she was making much money, but I was like, you know what, let me just try. Like it might be my life career. So I decided to just apply, like not even thinking about it. I was like, okay, let me just try, because I wasn't really planning on being in Hartford. So I just did it. I was like, okay, whatever. I signed up, and I went to the interview, and I still wasn't fully motivated. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. And I still, like, after I went, interview went well, like they loved me, and I still had it on the back burner. And it was like, wasn't until June of the year after I graduated, I was like, okay, I think this is the place I should go, because there was another opportunity that had opened up while I was applying for Grace, and I was like, yeah, I should go to this other school, which was in Baltimore, and I didn't really want to go that far. So that was more than 2 minutes, but yeah.
So, really quickly, what sort of advice would you give yourself, looking back at your time at Trinity and where you are now? What sort of advice would you give yourself?
So when I thought about this question, I was thinking two different answers. So my first answer was, basically, I didn't really do my research about urban education while I was at Trinity. I think as, teachers in urban education, or even like people who are interested in making an impact on students, you hear in all your ed studies classes, like, okay, there's this education gap and we have to do something about it. It's like, teaching is not the only route to do that, but I felt at least that teaching was like the only option that I had, and I didn't really dig to really figure out, okay, what is living in an urban environment like? What is even this word that's urban? I feel like even now that I live in Hartford, I still don't really know what that term means. It can mean so many different things to so many different people. So I think at Trinity, I wish that I would have done more research about, what is urban education, what is urban living, what does that entail? So I think definitely expanding your vocabulary and expanding your toolbox of, like different terms to explain, what urban education is all about and what the mission really is, I think is definitely my first advice. And then just like also taking classes that go beyond, what the normal Trinity culture like pushes you to do. Like step out of your comfort zone and try to take those classes that you might not necessarily want to take. Because those classes are usually the ones that you'll learn the most in. Like I remember I took a class my senior year that was all about Invisible Man. I don't know if any of you know that book, but it was like one of the classes that really resonated with me, because like everywhere I go now, they drop this name, Invisible Man, and I'm like, oh, I know that book, So it's like, I really learned a lot from that class, and I wouldn't have taken it if it wasn't for my friend, and if I didn't need like one more credit to graduate. So that's my advice.
Thank you. All right, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Birmingham. I graduated 8 years ago, in 2007. I can't believe it's been that long. While I was at Trinity, I did the consortium program through St. Joseph College. So when I graduated, I had a semester left to student teach. So I graduated in May of 07. I started student teaching in Hartford in September. And then I got a job in Hartford. In January, I took over for a retiring teacher. Since then, I've been in 3 different schools in Hartford. I've been at Matanzas Elementary, which is in the downtown area. I was there for 2.5 years. I worked at Breakthrough Magnet School for a year, which was just voted the #1 magnet school in America. And now I am at the Expeditionary Learning Academy at Middle School with Jesse, and I've been there for 5 years, I think. And it's definitely been the best fit. I teach 2nd grade. I've taught kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, and 2nd is by far my favorite grade. I love what I do every day. It's extremely challenging. I'm also a new mom. I have a 7-month-old baby, and it's really, really hard to be a teacher. And I call my students my kids, but then I have my other real kid. So it's hard to manage both of those things. You become so invested in what you do and the change that you have and potential you see in these kids. The difference you make in their lives. I have, since I've been there for 5 years, I was teaching 1st grade. I have kids who are now in 5th grade, and it's amazing that I see them at 10 and 11 years old, and I remember them as my little 1st graders. So that's my path. What I would suggest, I was a very motivated undergraduate. I am a planner, and I planned everything. I knew what courses I was taking and things like that. So I might have told myself to relax a little and maybe enjoy my time here a little bit. Because I was taking courses at Trinity and at St. Joseph College, it's very manageable. I was also a double major here, so I had a lot on my plate. So we need to take a breath and relax. But also, I did not pursue as many opportunities outside of what my requirements were. Sort of like what Jesse was saying, all of my classes at St. Joe's and here, most of them anyways had requirements to be in schools and do some work in schools where I wish I took more of an initiative to explore the city and the other schools that they have. I did my student teaching at Noah Webster, which was a magnet school in Hartford. And that semester of student teaching, I could totally teach in Hartford. It's a breeze. And then my first job teaching was what I consider like the real Hartford. It's not the magnet school. It's very different. I feel there's a big disparity between magnet schools and, well, not that I know there's a big disparity between magnet schools and the neighborhood schools. Jesse and I work at a city neighborhood school, and we're losing a lot of our population to the magnet schools and the charter schools and things like that. So I wish that I took more of an initiative to see the other schools in the city and not just stick with the magnet schools or even just what was locally around here. Really see the other schools, because we have 29 elementary schools here in the city, and I know all of them will be willing to have an extra set of hands. It'd be hard for us to find a teacher that would not want anyone in their classroom helping out. And like Jesse said, the kids love it. I am a coordinator of that 200, and I often take students in my classroom, and my students love, my kids love having a Trinity student knowing college. Not all of them were a block away, and not all of them are aware how close Trinity is. They don't realize that this great college is right up the street. So having someone, I will spend time having college students talk about what college is like, and the dorm, and what a room is like, and you can pick your own classes and things like that, just so people can explore their college. So,
Thank you. All right, suffice.
First of all, I want to apologize. I just recently had surgery, so I might sound or look a bit funny. But y'all are tired, so it'll probably be entertaining. So I take that apology back. It was interesting what you just said about how kids can be right down the block and never be here, and what you said about what is urban education. I think that's something that is common in a lot of cities. If you guys are interested in cities, that's something that I think is common in cities. You have a significant population of people, at least on the East Coast, if we're talking about cities on the East Coast, I could say more specifically, that are localized on their street, their block, or what have you. Large population of people close together that don't have close relationships with the people right across the street. Whereas if you go to more rural and suburban areas, you have people spread out on like houses and miles and acres of land, right? But everyone a mile away is your cousin, and that's so-and-so store, and that's so-and-so museum is familiar. So if you really think about that, it's unique. That's something strange. It's something that teachers can make a difference at. It's something that doesn't change without teachers. I think what that means is that a lot of the parents in the cities are working so much that they can't take their kids 2 blocks away to all the great things that are happening. So a lot of times what you find in cities is that you actually do have all these amazing things happening, but you have a common sentiment that there's nothing going on in the city. Okay,
Yep.
like Kate was just saying, you guys are kind of like surrogate parents, you know? When the parents can't be there to take them 2 blocks away, you're either through your books or your explanations or literally taking them on field trips. You guys are doing what the parents can't do or won't do for whatever reason. Does that make sense? I came to Trinity from the top school in New York City, a very nerdy school, and I came being a rapper, and I ended up turning down a deal with the best hip-hop label in the world, Def Jam, to come get my degree at Trinity. When I came to Trinity for my orientation weekend, the dorm I stayed at was all the DJs and hip-hop program directors on the campus. So I was like, whoa, I love this shit. And it's like, I was originally an electrical engineering major, and one of the professors here wrote this big is anyone here into engineering? Okay. So it's this big 600 book, famous book for engineers, and like he was here. So I was like, wow, you can do hip hop here, and it's a legitimate engineering place. And that's not just for like, engineering, computer science. There's so many things at Trinity that are unique, and that you don't find a mixture of them at other colleges. You kind of get one thing or the other. And here you can get a lot of things. People take it for granted. And ironically, after I graduated, I found out that Hartford is exactly the same way. It's this little city that's really unique. I've been all around. I've been to pretty much every state in America because I'm an artist and I go around. And I've been to a couple different countries. And it's really unique to have a city that you can go hiking. You can go hiking 45 minutes away. We have Talcott Mountain. I ate blueberries on my way here. I mixed the blueberries. I can't eat solid food. I tried with the blueberries right now. But, I picked those blueberries. I couldn't do that when I was in New York City. I can't just go pick blueberries. But then I can deal with real inner city hustle and bustle at the same time. And for me as an artist and educator, it's the epicenter of so many colleges and academies. If you're interested in urban education, you're definitely in the right place. Salute to yourself for that, although you probably don't even know it yet. How many of you are students here? How many of you are already working in schools? How many of you are working in an organization outside of the school? What are the other guys doing? There's like 4 of y'all that didn't answer.
There's other people here who are recent alums also.
Yeah.
So, but not working in schools?
High school's where most of teaching here, too, at Trinity.
Okay, so you are doing education. Okay.
So suffice, I just wanted to keep our time. What sort of work do you do? It's a lot of different things, but what sort of like workshops, different things that you do, in terms of
I think what I do is I study vulnerability and I teach people how to be vulnerable and why it's important to be vulnerable.
Can you give us an example? How that might look in a school or with a group of educators that you work with in one of your workshops?
Okay, so like when I first graduated, I worked at a literacy organization in Hartford, right? So that was with adults, 30 years to 70 years old. You guys can hear me, right? So I was working with adults 30 to 70 years old, and many of them are the type of people, the literacy rate in Hartford is 70% low literacy. There's no such thing as illiteracy, so that's the bottom. It means like you can't read a bus schedule, you can't read medical prescriptions to know if you're taking the right dosage. 73%. And I think nationally it was 50%, but it's gone up a little bit. So just directly being in the community, I got to see the parents and grandparents and caretakers of the kids that we're trying to teach, and it suddenly made a lot of sense. For instance, when you have you send out a flyer to your parents, right? And you say, come to parent-teachers night or come to a conference, and 3 people show up to the parent-teachers, and you're like, these are your kids, I'm taking care of them all day, and why aren't you there? Once you realize a lot of them can't read, you have more compassion for them, right? But you don't realize that. Like coming out of Trinity and other schools beyond Trinity, you know, like just the average teacher, even we teach for America, you know, the average teacher is not prepared to be vulnerable. And in fact, when I first started, I think the first school I was in after the literacy program was Hartford High. Another great thing about Hartford, it's like the first high school in America, right?
What did you do at Hartford High?
Well, I took some of the kids there on their first trip outside of Hartford on a plane to meet Alice Walker, who's a Pulitzer Prize. Some people think she's the greatest living poet today. She wrote Color Purple, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Oprah became famous through her movie. She funded a trip. But so I did a lot of interesting things which I could babble about, but that wasn't actually my point. My point was that after the literacy program, when I first worked at Hartford High, I was trying to be a teacher, you know? It was kind of like why I got my degree at Trinity. I wanted a degree in rapping, but I got a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Trinity. But my final project was a rap program. My education class was hip-hop as a pedagogical tool, history was hip-hop as a political platform, and so on, right? So I was trying to be a teacher, and I wrote curricula, and I tried to teach curricula to these kids, and it was really frustrating. And I would come home a lot of times, as most of y'all who are already in schools probably in your first year or so have experienced, thinking I'm a horrible teacher, you know? Or maybe not. Rick, show of hands, anybody ever come home thinking you were a horrible teacher? Okay, good, that's great. For 3 of us, I feel your pain. But what I realized was that I was teaching too much based on what I read and researched about teaching. And I wasn't being vulnerable in terms of listening to the kids first, knowing that I was a human just like those kids, and saying like, hey, you look angry right now, or you look bored right now. Are you bored? Are you angry? Are you happy? Are you excited? Finding out from the parents, can they read? You know what I mean? Letting them be vulnerable, and the more I was vulnerable about, you know what, I'm not like the smartest guy in the world and have all these degrees and things. I'm just a human being with problems and bills and college debt too, that I gotta pay back, and you're a human. And the more I'm vulnerable in that sense, the more I can understand the parents and the kids. And I think the more vulnerable you are, the more you actually start connecting. And we can talk more about how that creates real education.
Thank you. All right, so we'll have more time to talk with each of the panelists when we break out. I want to turn it over to Stacy. Stacy, please.
Try to be short because I can be chatty. So I'm Stacy Lopez. I started here as class of 2010, and I took a little longer to finish. So I wrapped up an Ed Studies degree and a minor in community action in 2011. I knew pretty early on that I didn't want to be a teacher and work in a traditional classroom. And I made that decision because I spent time shadowing teachers. During my community placements,
through ed studies. I made real connections with folks. So after the semester ended or after I completed my hours, I asked, can I go back in? Can I follow you around? Can I follow this other teacher around? And I knew that I personally couldn't do the hustle and bustle that teachers do day in and out. One, I don't like rules, and schools have a lot of rules. So I became really interested in this area called youth development. So in Hartford, what I've been doing, as an undergraduate, and then after I graduated, was working with a variety of different nonprofit organizations that work with students and families, all with a social justice mission. So I've worked in gardens, I've worked at the Hartford Public Library teaching older adults, senior citizens, how to open Google accounts, how to do online literacy. I've done food justice classes at Grace Academy for an after-school program. I currently work as an organizer for a community organizing group called the Christian Activities Council, and they've been in Hartford for over 160 years. And as a community organizer, a lot of what I do is teach. A lot of what I do is listen, except I go into it knowing that I am not the expert, right? So I need to make sure that as much as I see inequalities in schools and in the community, that's my perspective. And my courses here at Trinity gave me some really powerful tools, gave me theories, gave me perspectives, gave me the ability to name drop scholars. But at the end of the day, that doesn't connect me to a student and parents who have limited formal education, right? So my job is to translate the big knowledge that I've learned on this campus and make it real to them and say that your experience in Hartford is legitimate, is valid, and it can help change things in your life, in your community, in your school. So I spend a lot of time door knocking on phones, going to parent-teacher meetings. I've designed curriculums. I've taught bilingual cooking classes for kids and adults. Knowing that I haven't gone to culinary school, I would bring in chefs. So constantly working in these after-school programs and in this setting, I would hear something, that gave me a little fire under my belt, which was, if you can't do, you teach, right? And if you can't teach, you become a youth development worker, meaning you become the coordinator of the after-school program, you become the summer camp counselor. So there was this power dynamic between what positions mattered in the community in terms of who works with kids and families, who had the most value. And what I was able to see in my position of being a mentor, a coordinator, a director of an after-school program, the director of a community program, is that those third spaces that are outside of the home and the school, some powerful stuff happens, right? You see a mix of all of these inequalities, and as someone who is bilingual, who is Latina and has a commitment to work with low-income communities of color, I am able to understand different perspectives. And I have to bring that back with people who have those experiences and present it to administrators. And that's really hard, and that's why I couldn't be a teacher, because you can't start a fight with the principal every day. You can't complain about the budget every day. So you have to get really creative in your strategies. In addition to working as an organizer, I started grad school full-time this summer. I'm doing a master's in social work at the University of St. Joseph's in West Hartford. I would strongly recommend taking some time off, getting some work experience before going to grad school. I wrestled for a couple of years in, do I want to become a guidance counselor, or maybe do I want to go into teaching? Maybe I can just shut up and follow rules and teach the test. And social work, I was able to find a program that had a very strong social justice component where I could still have a critique of systems, but that I would learn how to create, some changes and give me a degree that was, kind of useful as opposed to just a general like Master of Arts degree. What else would I recommend for Trinity students or looking back at my experience? Get off campus as much as possible. And not just through your community learning placements. My last 2 years, I had some on-campus jobs, but I started tutoring and working for organizations in Hartford just because I needed income as a student. So I decided I'm going to do it in Hartford. I didn't know that I was planning on staying in Hartford after I graduated. And once I completed my degree, for me, it made sense to continue those connections because I felt if I'm going to go into a new city, I'm going to have to start from scratch. I'm essentially going to be doing community learning placements all over again, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go deeper. So an organization that I volunteered for, that I wrote my thesis on while I was here at Hartford, I'm now on the board of. And it's called the Judy Doran Performance Project. They do arts residencies in schools and in prisons. And, you know, that's work that I started here as an undergraduate. And now as a resident of Hartford, I continue to champion for them. So get off campus and think of your networks here as well among students. So my friends at Trinity, I've had the pleasure of living with them. After graduation, they're some of my closest colleagues. They're my base that I call and that I vent to. But then also think of the folks that you're not friends with, because for me, I spend a lot of time asking for money for programs. And I'm mostly calling frat brothers, sororities, and big networks, and probably calling econ majors. So as much as possible, like keep an open mind about who you associate with, because once you graduate, it is a big fishbowl. And you don't know who you're going to be working for, asking for money for, or yeah, you just don't know.
All right, so we're gonna stop there and have a little bit of a transition. What I'm gonna ask is we can take maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and our panelists are gonna find their tables with their names on them. And once they get there, I'm gonna actually have envelopes with some prepared questions. You're free to ask our panelists pretty much anything you want to ask them. But if you guys are like struggling, you guys want a little bit of help, I've put together some questions that might help the conversation go, and they're a little bit different. So they're about career, work, and kind of the future, but they're kind of in different areas. You guys are free to move, so you don't have to stay necessarily in the spot that you would want to go. But I would say let's disperse ourselves and kind of make sure everyone has a good conversation at each table. We'll talk for maybe like 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll kind of like reconvene and just kind of wrap up after that. But I would like to give everyone an opportunity to talk kind of more on an informal and more close spaces with some of the panels. And I also want to add, as we go to our tables, feel free to grab some more food, and feel free to grab dessert if you'd like, brownies and that sort of thing. So yeah, let's find your table.
Yeah, does that mean they can go to more than one table?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to jump around too, guys.
It's like,
No, I was there.
also.
It is. Yeah, I'm trying to offer an answer, so they're trying to roll that out as on there. I don't have
I said the nerd is, not the
So it's a private school. Yeah, private school has some schools are different, but for our school, you don't have to.
I like what you said about.
So that's why they have it. That's why they want to do it every 2 years. Because it's really hard to teach it and taking classes for your masters and trying to one of our teachers is doing that right now.
First of all, thank you for everyone for coming and having such wonderful conversations. We'll be here for a little bit longer, so you're free to continue with the conversation, have more food, take food with you if you'd like, brownies and all that stuff. I just wanted to give some parting words and some kind of couple of plugs. So first of all, if you haven't already, the entry course to Ed Studies here at Trinity College, Ed 200, Analyzing Schools. If you haven't taken it, sign up. It's offered in the fall and the spring. I think many people here have already taken it. If you're a graduate, you've probably definitely taken it. For undergrads, if you haven't, please consider it. Again, a plug. The Ed Studies page has a couple of different things that are helpful. It explains to you how to major in Ed Studies if that's something that you're interested in. And there's also a page that I'll just jump to really quickly that kind of summarizes some information that Kate in particular may have talked about in terms of pathways to teaching. So there's two different websites, pathways to teaching and how to declare a major, that may be helpful to you if you're considering a major in Ed Studies or getting into teaching. So those are just some kind of nuts and bolts things. In terms of wrapping up today, feel free to go back to our page. I'm going to probably send it out again. We're going to have a few more interviews with other alums that are in different kind of career paths, teaching and other things. There's already a new one that's up, but in terms of time, I didn't share it with you guys today. But one of the new ones, we have an interview with a young lady named Berkeley Singer, who is a recent alum from Trinity College. And we had about an 8-minute conversation today about what she's doing. She's doing a program called City Year, and she's in Denver, Colorado, she's not from there, so she's doing that program. So I'll send you guys the link, and you guys can watch the video at your leisure. But we'll probably have a couple of more of these videos just to kind of keep the conversation going about what are the different pathways into urban education. So with that, again, I just wanted to thank you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to stay for a little bit and continue to talk to us.
Yeah. Tell me about loan forgiveness for educators. What do you know about that? I was in an event at I was presenting at CCSU recently, and we had a congressman, and one of the things he said to the crowd was, if you work in urban communities and work in a community in the city, we will forgive your loans.
Certain loans after 5 years.
So there's conditions on it. So you have to be in a school in a particular area. So you definitely have to be. You have to be a teacher. I think you can be another sort of specialist, but I'm not sure on that. Like a social worker. Public service. I know AmeriCorps, there's an eligibility for that. So you have to check and see what categories of work that you do. It has to be a Title I school in general, so that means high poverty school. And in the other categories, it has to be a federal student loan, so a loan that started with the federal government. So what are the loans that are eligible? Perkins loan, direct loan, Stafford loan, I think is related. So there's several conditions. And what you can do, if you have a student loan, generally what you can do is look on the forms that they send you like each month may have some information, and also the forms when you initially sign the dotted line saying I take this loan out also have some information on the back or kind of related to that. I can talk to you more.
That would be helpful. I kind of know about that, but I thought that might be helpful for people who didn't know.
Okay.
I think that's one of the benefits because teachers don't get paid. Citydata.com, I just want to recommend to anybody who's a student, is a great site to find statistics. And Hartford is like top 3 in underpaid, overeducated people, which means we have some of the best teachers in America here, which are you guys, and some of the most underpaid people in America here as well. So I think that information is useful. You do get other benefits besides the paycheck if you work in this.
All right, cool. Sounds like a blog post. So thank you. All right, cool. All right, so thank you guys. Feel free to take food because there's plenty left.
Thank you.
Thanks to our panelists.
There's just
Jack.
one thing, a couple people asking for more details. Can you go to that Pathways to Teaching page again?
Absolutely.
Because they just updated some more information on this. So if you're interested in the, while you're an undergraduate here, you can do the University of St. Joseph program, but it's hard to pull off. Kate McEachern, you did this.
Hey, Birmingham.
I'm sorry, Kate Birmingham, using the old name. It's hard to pull off, but you have to coordinate. It's doable. If you're curious, you can click on that link there, the number 2, and which shows you, just briefly, if you don't mind for a second, Robert.
Yeah. Teaching
And if
certification.
you ever want to talk, you can always email me or contact me. I'll be more than happy to
Sort of
chat with you.
explains the program, and it's the equivalent of doing a major at another campus. So that's why it doesn't work for everyone. It tends to work well people who are planning ahead. I guess Kate, again, on this, call yourself a person who's planning ahead on this.
I'm a credit planner, yeah.
Yep. And if you get lucky too. But the other link, if you
My wife did that too.
that's right.
Georgia? Yeah,
Yep.
that's doable.
Doable. The other link, would you go back one, please? And you see where it says the third one, alternate route to graduate school programs. We just updated this with more information. These are programs for post-bachelor degree programs where you are either earning teacher certification while you're on the job, or you are in a graduate program arrangement where you're paying tuition and getting certification that way, or sometimes there's hybrids of these. Jesse, can you explain briefly the kind of grad program you did?
Mine is no longer in existence, but there are similar ones.
There's some ones, yep.
Where I did classes for a year, like master's classes. After the year was over, so I didn't pay for any of my classes because I spent my time during the day in school. So I was in school, just basically however they wanted to use me, so I was like an intern basically. Then I went to my classes at night, so it was very long days. But then at the end of it, I didn't have any debt, and the only thing I paid for was my student teaching at the end. So it was a year and a half, I got a master's and certification, which was for $5,000.
And Jesse's program does no longer exist, but the category and many other programs are rising up. They're often called teacher residency programs. And it's a newer category. We're seeing a lot more success in these. And you can see there's a bunch in there now for Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. So these are brand new links, and feel free to go explore some of these and check them out. Graduate school programs are great if you've either got tuition money or if you don't mind taking out a loan, or sometimes graduate programs will pay for you to come there as long as you're working for them in some way. So check it out.
Thank you, Jack. And thank you, everybody. All right, thank you, panelists.